Live, Andrew.
I welcome everyone to this first meeting for 2026. I welcome all members back for this year and anyone in the gallery. In accordance with the Local Government Act 1993 and the requirements of the New South Wales Office of Local Government 2025 new model code of meeting practice, the Central Tablelands Leads Authority live streams and records this meeting. Live streaming and subsequent audio visual recording will be published on the CTWA's website and remain publicly accessible for the duration required by legislation. Can I ask everyone to turn your phones off, put them on silent or flight mode, please? By speaking at this meeting, you acknowledge and agree that your words and images of you may be broadcast live and made available in the public domain through CTWA's website. Please ensure that when you address the meeting or are respectful of others, in the appropriate language at all times. CTWA accepts no liability for any defamatory or offensive comments or gestures made during the meeting by participants. I note that this is also the first meeting under, as I've said, under the new model code of meeting practice, and then we'll do some changes that have been introduced and will need to be introduced going forward. Acknowledgement of country. Central Tablelands Leads Authority acknowledges the Wiradjuri people, the traditional custodians of the lands where we work, and the CTWA celebrates the diversity of Aboriginal peoples and their ongoing cultures and connections to the lands and waters of the New South Wales Central Tablelands. Apologies and applications. I note there are no apologies, all members are present. Disclosure of interest. Are there any disclosures of interest, or pecuniary or non-pecuniary, by any council, by any members? I note none. In relation to 1.5 presentations, 1.6, I note under the new code of meeting practice, these actually should occur before the formal meeting. So in the future, there will be a scheduled time at 1:30 for presentations and the public forum, or presentations within the public forum. If there are no presentations or questions from the public, then we will be advised on the evening before the meeting, and the meeting will start as normal at 2 p.m. and there will be no public forum prior to it. Go to item 2, ordinary meeting of council, 12th of December 2025. The recommendation is that council adopt the minutes of the ordinary meeting of Central Tablelands Leads Authority held at 7 Lee Street, Kelso at 2 p.m. on the 12th of December 2025. Do I have a motion, please? Member Gulliver and Member Reid. Thank you. Any discussion? If not, I put the motion as per the recommendation. All in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Item 2.2, actions from the ordinary meeting of council on the 12th of December 2025. The recommendation is council notes the updated actions from the previous council meeting. Mover, please, to the motion. Member Gulliver, seconder. Member Ring, thank you. Discussion on this matter? Yes.
I have one question, if I may, Chair. In relation to item 3, where it talks about undertake a review of the ARIC terms of reference for in early 2026. This is really for Danny, but how do we define early 2026? Is it the first quarter? I'm asking because when we do a review of the general manager, I don't like having anything that's over ambiguous that can come back and bite unnecessarily on the read.
Okay, so I know that the general manager's got quite a lot on his plate for them, so I will ask him when we'd like him to do that.
Through the chair, I'd be able to provide a better answer after next week when we have our first ARIC of the new year, and that meeting will have the new chair in place, so I can provide an update to.
I know, look, I appreciate it. It's actually the time, because in this it's talking about early in 2026.
But I think we've got a new chairman.
Yeah, no, I
So the
appreciate
general
it.
manager wants to consult with the new chairman about the new terms of reference and see when it's appropriate, so I agree with that.
Yeah.
So are you suggesting that maybe we should put it to the third quarter of 2026 so that it doesn't infringe on the general manager's performance?
Yeah, look, I'd be happy with that.
Councillor, Member Reynolds, are you happy?
Yeah.
Yes, Henry,
I was actually going to suggest, as in possibly after that ARIC, that the chair of both the finance committee and the chair of the county council and the general manager have a discussion about sort of where we head and then bring a report back to the council meeting, the next council meeting in April, I think it is, on, with regard to this review. But I concur with Member Ring that we do, so that it doesn't impact on this review of the general manager, which is brought up in new business later.
So can I suggest we change item 3, so where it says early in 2000, put it to third quarter 2026. Is that what you're suggesting, Member Ring?
Yeah,
You happy with that?
Is it third quarter or fourth quarter? And would we be better off having it on the fourth quarter?
Well, let's say the second half of calendar year.
So I say you want it to be after July. Okay.
Well, I don't mind if it's do you want the...
and the third quarter, within the third
Financial
quarter.
year or calendar year.
This
And the
Saturday.
third quarter.
Third quarter, yes,
I'm ecstatic that I brought that up.
Any other discussion on the action items? I think the question has been closed.
okay. Yes,
Member Reynolds?
Chair, item number 1, 6 within that item, J&J bookkeeping. It says it's closed, but the J&J bookkeeping are continuing on an interim basis. So should that say still be open until we actually do have a tender and a decision moving forward, which may be a couple more months? So I just suggest, because it is still ongoing, that it's actually not
Well,
closed.
it notes under update it is ongoing, so I agree with you. It should probably have ongoing status.
Yep, happy for that.
It will be closed when... Yeah. Right, you've got 2 changes? Yes, Member Frog.
Stretching, Chair.
Stretching the what? Oh, stretching, right.
My apologies, Your Honour. Your Worship, sorry.
Any further discussion on this? If not, I put the motion as per the recommendation. All in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you. We go to item 3.1, General Manager's Report. The reports, that's item 3. 3.1 is Investments Report. The recommendation of Council notes the investment report as of 31st of January 2026. Can I have a motion, please? Member Reynolds, Member Ring, thank you. Member Reynolds?
So a question to the General Manager with regard to our cash position and incoming funds. So with the projection here, between the overdraft and the cash reserve fund, we've got about $150,000, which would be insufficient to get us to the end of the financial year. So a question then, is any indication of when the WAP funding may be coming into the County Council, and whether with that WAP funding we would have still enough funds, or would we have to look at the 31-day account and maybe put some of those funds on notice later in this financial year?
Through the Chair, I have conducted a cash flow forecast for the business, which extends out to July this calendar year. I note that the last email that I received from the department around the WAP funding is that we're expecting to receive it into our account within the next 5 days. So that's $358,000. We also have the forestry work that is just commenced, so we expect to receive the funding from that once that work is complete.
That's 60K.
Yes. And so over the next few months, I'm not expecting to have to touch the 31-day notice account. However, there may be a period towards the end of the financial year, May, June, that I may need to draw down 100,000, 150,000. And I can keep councillors updated on that position.
Thank you, Chair.
Member Ring, have you got any other discussion on this investment report? Not, I put the motion as per the recommendation. All in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you. 3.2, monthly financial report. Recommendation is that Council note the report from the General Manager on the profit and loss statement for the period ending 31st of January 2026. Can I have a motion, please? Member Reynolds, Member Gulliver, thank you. Member Reynolds?
a question through to the general manager again, given that this is to the end of January, so we've got 7 months data, and we've got with the QBRS as well, which is coming up shortly. So it's probably a question on both, but sort of a projection, because there's a lot of figures here, but it's sort of unclear at the end where we're going to potentially end up. On your current projections, and I know this is only a projection, so we can't hold you to it, but by the end of January, where are you, by the end of June, but at the end of January data at your fingertips, is there an indication of we will do better than budget, or it will come in close to budget, which is a reasonably substantial deficit? Where are we sort of heading?
So through the chair, my expectations are that we will be better than budget, unless there's something unforeseen at this point. My expectations is that we will come in with anywhere from a loss of about $50,000 through to a break-even perspective. But again, I wouldn't want to be betting the farm on that.
Thank you. That's roughly where I thought, depending on certain scenarios through the check, that's where we potentially come in. But sort of the best case around about that break-even point of view. And again, there could be worst case. And one of the positives is our level of interest earned, which is above expectations, and given that interest rates are now rising, above budget, that we may even do even a little bit better over the next few months, given we've got these 3 deposits which we talked about in the previous report, that are earning over 4%, and they may go up towards 4.5%, which will provide a better outcome for the county council from a revenue point of view. But on the other side, there are some expenses, particularly motor vehicle, where we are sort of running a bit over. So it's not everything is in the positive, but at least there are a number of factors that are pointing for a better outcome than was originally projected. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Member. General Manager, the signage of 24,000, that was incurred last year and should have been accounted for against last year's WACC. So obviously it's going to be accounted against this year's WACC, is it? And can it not be?
I don't believe it can be, unless my ops manager.
Sorry, this one here. LLS signage of 24,000. Apparently it was incurred last year.
Yes, it was.
And should have been accounted against the last year's WACC revenue as it falls within one of the categories, I assume. Yeah. Can we do it against this year's WACC?
I can't put that against this year's WACC because it's already been reported and been used in last year's WACC. And it was what physically spent and used in last year's WACC.
Right, so we should have accounted for it last year. We just missed it. Yeah.
Could I ask a question of the chair? Is there anything through the operations or our general funds that could be offset against the WACC to the tune of 24,000?
I'd have to take that on notice.
Well, that's fine. I think if there's something that we can defer onto it and do it, it gets less chance of them being called out doing it in the project.
Yep.
And I do have a couple of questions, if I could, Chair. The other expenses, is that the signage, 24,000? No, we've already paid the sign. What were the other expenses, 24,000? On page 15.
Page 15.
I think that's the signage, isn't it?
That is solely the sign.
That's the
The
signage.
signage,
Okay,
yeah.
all right.
If you scroll down to the detail of the P&L,
Right.
on page 20, it shows the other expenses breakdown, which
sorry.
is the LLS signage.
Yeah. And with CTWA being exceptionally high, is there a reason for that and how are you managing it?
So through the chair, we did have one staff member who had 3 months off for surgery in operation. So
That's more extenuating circumstances rather than that. Okay,
So there's nothing so far in the sick leave that causes me any concern at this point.
Thank you.
Yes, Honourable.
I was just going to clarify on two things. And with regard to the signage, it's really a technicality because you probably should be depreciating it because those signs are going to be there for more than 1 year. Part of the problem, I understand it though, is that they're not all within our Weeds County Council. There are other constituent county councils, other councils within the LLS that we took the payment on behalf of the LLS to do the signage, but we're doing it on behalf of others. So, but they're not reimbursing us because the funding was for everyone. And so the income came in last financial year, but the expenditure was invoiced, correct me if I'm wrong, the General Manager, this financial year, so hence why we've got to take it into account. Whereas we should have actually put it as an accounting adjustment last financial year that we needed to be extended to offset one against the other, but that wasn't done. So the profit and loss was actually $24,000 whatever dollars above what we should have reported last financial year. So we'll take that hit, which will be part of that $50,000 anyway. So roughly half of it is for an overstatement of the income or profit. Surplus is probably a better word. Last financial year should have been actually so. In the worst case scenario is probably realistically a $25,000 loss to a break even as opposed to $50,000. But again, from an accounting point of view, it has to be stated here. But it's also questionable whether it should be a depreciable item or not because it's going to last for more than 1 year. And whether it should come into our books, but then it's an asset of others too. It's
hard for us to appreciate an asset that's not on our.
Some of it is on our books, but some of it's not.
Yeah.
That's,
I also note through the chair that we also had an offset to that, unrelated, which was the forestry call. We did the work and it's incurred the cost last financial year, but we will pay this financial year. So there's an amount of $24,900 of income that hadn't been budgeted for that we're also getting the benefit of. So the net effect is potentially zero.
4,000, is it? Because they gave us 20,000 and we spent 24,000. So.
I've got income here of 24, but
and secondly, Chair, there would be an offset with regard to the sick leave, as in there would be an offset with wages that as it's paid in sick as opposed to paid in general wages, so one would cancel out the other in the budget point of view. So it's not as though it's extenuating on the other. As all of a sudden $23,000 or whatever the figure was an extra sick leave. Was as in it is counted by a lower wages fee of that exactly the same amount, or should be equivalent to that same amount.
I just note on the third last line of page 13, the year-to-date on tribunal variance should be 66,815 to 3. That's all right. No further discussion. I put the motion as per the recommendation. All in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Item 3.3 is the CTWA Finance Working Party Minutes. Recommendation of Council note to report. Do I have a motion, please? Council Ring, Council Gulliver. Thank you, Council Ring. Member. Any discussion? Member Gulliver. Member Reynolds.
Thank you, Chair. Just as the chair of this working group, a very good meeting. We did cover a lot of ground, and in particular, noting where we're sitting from an order point of view, which again we've moved forward. We have some issues, items, but there are pathways forward with regard to the management letter and actually trying to come up with solutions with regard to the management letter. So again, very good working party that's continuing to achieve, and I would recommend, I think we may look at the end of the financial year or whether we should continue. At this stage it is achieving a lot to make these meetings a lot shorter, by covering ground that doesn't need to be covered during the council meeting, but we have resolutions and pathways forward, which also go to ARIC and other committees of council as well. So, yeah. as a
Okay, thank you,
chief
member.
goal.
Any other discussion? I'll put the motion. All in favour? Carried unanimously. 3.4, quarterly budget review statement, second quarter. Recommendation is the council, I'll just change the bullets to 1, 2s and 3s. 1, receives and notes the QBRs for the second quarter ending 31st December 2025. 2, endorses the responsible accounting officer statement confirming that the CTWA's financial position is satisfactory, having regard to the original estimate of income and expenditure. 3, authorises submission of the QBRs and QRS data return to the Office of Local Government of New South Wales. Can I have a motion, please? Councillor Reynolds, Member Reynolds, Member Gulliver. Thank you, Member Reynolds.
I think I've mentioned most of it in the previous report, given that was 1 month more long. But yeah, as in tracking on budget or a little bit ahead of budget, as the General Manager said. So looking reasonably good. And of course, it is important to note that the council agreed to increase the hours of the General Manager for, I think it was 13 weeks, if my memory serves me right.
Yes.
And to actually get some of the policies done. And the General Manager has progressed a number of policies. And, some of them will possibly have to come to a workshop or a working group or information session, I think that is the correct term these days, for the council possibly before the next meeting, but we'll discuss that at a later date.
Okay. No. Any other discussion? If not, I put the motion as per the recommendation. All in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you. .5 is update on expressions of interest by financial services. Recommendations, council notes the update on the expression of interest by financial services. Motion, please. Member Ring. Member Graham, thank you. Any discussion?
No.
I will ask the General Manager to update us if any further.
On note to date, I've had 2 submissions, and the close date for this is the next week, 27th, next Friday.
Yes, Member Reynolds.
Just as an update on that too, the finance working group has, I think it's 2 members, General Manager, or was it 3, that were appointed to a review panel once the tenders come back in, or
2, I think.
2 members that come back in. So there'll be a report which will come back up to council on who is appointed and why.
Thank you. Any other discussion? If not, I put the motion as per the recommendation. All in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you. .6 is Code of Conduct form, annual return. The recommendation of council endorses the submission of the model Code of Conduct complaint statistics for the period 1st September 2024 to 31st August 2025 to the Office of Local Government. Motion, please. Member Ring, Member Gulliver, thank you. Any discussion?
No, I think we've got to look at our game with 0.
Yes.
It's just not good enough.
I think many of us.
Yeah, it's just not helping the reputation of our constituent councils.
The other bit disappointed with the 15 doesn't have any kind of complaint.
No.
I think some of our constituent councils would be very envious. and there's been no expenditure in this regard, which is excellent. No further discussion. I put the motion as per the recommendation. All in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you. 3.7, update on roadside spraying program, financial year 2026. The recommendation is the council notes report from the General Manager on the financial year 2026 roadside spraying program. Could I have a motion, please? Member Fry. Second, Member Reynolds. Thank you. Member Fry.
Good update. Just wondering, do we have anything, General Manager, about how Oberon are going without our help, whether they're having any success locally or otherwise? Reports back from that General Manager. I know they were looking at trying externalised help, and just wonder how that is going for them.
Through the chair, may I refer that question to the chair?
Oh, yeah. if you would give us an update.
I'm
mate?
sorry, only if it's not a conflict of interest.
Yeah.
There has been some issues with the roadside spraying in Oberon, and at the council meeting Tuesday this week, it was determined that they would appoint 2 contractors. They rescinded the previous motion of November, and that they would appoint 2 contractors, CTWA and Howes Contracting, to perform the roadside spraying, and this would be for the period ending 31st of December 2026.
We're back in.
Together with another contractor. Member Graham and myself, because it could be perceived there was a conflict of duty, we stayed for the discussion but left for the vote. And I did check that was appropriate, that we could stay for the discussion, because the input we could give assisted the discussion, but we left for the vote. And so that's where it ended up. Member Reynolds.
Thank you, Chair. So a follow-on question on this one. I do want to come back to roads on spraying in a moment, but with regard to Oberon. So through you to the General Manager, do we have the capacity with our contractors to actually do this extra work, or do we need to wait till December, or can we do some of this work now? And did they accept, therefore, our terms as in the original contract that we put up? And how much of the contract, of the kilometres, or what level of kilometres is Oberon expecting CTWA to potentially do?
I could reply to some of that. The mix as between the 2 contractors has not been determined yet, and that will be done by the General Manager and staff between the 2 contractors point, which is CTWA and another contractor. We have allowed extra time for completion of it till the 31st of December 2026. I have to be careful because this was a confidential item, but I can say that there were considerations in light of weather, i.e. if we continue with our current weather, it may be too dry to roadside spray. Additionally, there were considerations such as too late for St John's Wort, and so that's why the extended period to 31st of December. I understand from the General Manager of Oberon, with discussions with CTWA, that they did have capacity to do it, noting that you will see from the program that a large slab of the roadside spraying for other councils has been done already. But I'll ask the General Manager.
So through the Chair, from memory of my tender submission, I think the kilometres were about 300 kilometres in total that Oberon were looking to have conducted in this season. I do note that I have spoken with the General Manager of Oberon, and I've expressed our willingness to help out if it was at all possible. And I also have spoken with my Manager of Operations to start to work out some plans if we are given that call line. So at this point we are capable, as noted by the Chair, on we're quite a way through the current spray program for the other councils, so there is the potential there to mobilise more than one spray crew into Oberon to knock over the work in a faster manner.
Given that it's a dry time, you pointed out St John's Wort, but it is a great time for Tussie because it's so obvious, and Blackwood's still going well. So will that delay because of St John's Wort? Because it is a perfect time because those weeds are so obvious because of the ground cover not being as good as it normally is with May.
I would defer that question to my Chris.
through you, Mr. Chair. Like that recent rain we had over the
Freshened
last
up.
couple of weeks, that's freshened everything up, and we're not seeing too bad effects at the moment. We have the capacity to finish off the councils that we're finishing off now, and then move across into Oberon. That's not a problem there. We have that capacity. Yeah, we just need to, I suppose, work out the detail in terms of the split between two potential contractors working as in us and the other one, trying to work out how we work in the same area and provide that. Obviously, it would be best to spray as much as we can in this season and not leave it to December next year, because then we're actually in the following year's spray program, not this year's program, so the more we can make it now.
So when they're spraying the week on, it's like a really selective, but tusk is a different thing, different chemical altogether to blackberry. Water and blackberry can cross over with chemical. But, what's the situation there with spray? Are they two separate tanks when they're doing it? Why do they do this?
So depending on what's there, so say you're doing a blackberry, what a woody weed run, so blackberry bed, all those things in a class, we'll have a tank mixed up with that. Often they'll then carry knapsacks and things like that on the back of the ute with the tussock mix in the knapsack, so if they come across tussock or Chilean or African or something in small quantities, they can just swap with a knapsack, put it out where they're going. If it's a road that's got a lot of something else on it, like a lot of Chilean or a lot of tussock on it, often what we have to do is come back and do a second pass on that road, because we can't mix the blackberry style sprays and the tussock sprays together in one tank. So they'll do one pass and then do another pass, but most of the time it's just like knapsack style, can take care of the tussock and that, unless you get a road that's fairly inundated with it. So
Just through you to Chris, or to general manager, if you're talking about a second run, and my understanding was the tender for this contract was the kilometre road. So that doesn't, I would assume, allow to go back for a second run. And I really don't want to see us going out backwards.
it's,
Sorry, but
yeah, that's,
Per kilometre doesn't necessarily mean you can't double up.
no,
You could do the same kilometre under time,
that's
still build it.
Yeah.
there's so many factors.
yeah, but if you've only got 300 kilometres to do, I mean,
Well, let's take an example. Swallows Nest Road, full of blackberry, full of tussock.
You can have one road that can be $1,000 a kilometre.
Yeah.
You could have the next road that's $100 a kilometre. At the end of the program, you average out somewhere at 500. Like you look at the data I get as the boys bring their information back in, and it goes up and down like a yo-yo throughout the year, because it depends which individual road they've gone down and what's on that individual road.
so we're just going to suck it and see, and we'll accept the fact that there's a risk involved. But okay, we'll just wait and see what pans out.
Reynolds?
So the follow-on question then, and it's partially been answered, in this going to December, what does it mean for next year's program? If this program is extended to December of this year for Oberon, not the other three councils?
Through the chair, I'm hearing this information for the first time today, so one next step will be to reach out to the general manager of Oberon and work through these details, particularly in light that we are currently working on our next year budget, and I need certainty around that and what we'll be asked to do.
The next question, if I may, Chair, is the $20,000 that's allocated to each council. Firstly, with Oberon, is that the intent to use that up front, or start, or how? We don't know. And with the other three constituent councils, where are we up to with those funds, or is nothing being decided yet?
So through the chair, I know in my meeting with the general manager of planning that they've indicated that they would like that 20,000 just parked in reserves for a rainy day. Off the top of my head, unless Chris knows the other councils.
Yes, so as, through Chair, as GM has said, Laney's opted to park it at the moment on the theory that if they need it, we'll use it. If we don't need it, we'll just put it aside. Bathurst has opted to take a 20 grand reduction on their cost, and Lithgow's opted at this stage, similar to Laney, in that just use the first Lithgow to start with, and then they either, once we finish that, then they'll decide whether they want to use the additional 20 to get further ahead, or whether they want to take it as a deduction.
In respect of Oberon, my general manager, both aware of the 20,000 credit and the amount that's been paid by forestry, because Oberon will be the major beneficiary of that on the roads, because we've got the most forestry. Yes.
Just on the overall matter, as a constituent council, Bathurst, I'm happy about the, extra concentration we've been getting in our local government area. But we also have a duty to the broader tableland, so can I encourage that those discussions are proactive with the Oberon councils. We don't want Oberon falling behind in their duties of biosecurity in this LGA constituent area.
We note that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair.
The Chair, I've got some other.
Yeah, sorry, I was going to ask, but I'll let you.
So the next question, and it may not be on the same wavelength. So Blaney, 137 kilometres was the target. We've done 154. So through the general manager to the chief biosecurity officer, is that because we've gone over a couple of roads that we did 2 years ago, and we've just gone back over those roads again to cover them? Is that the in the extra area?
Sorry, can you just repeat that again?
So the program is targeting 137 kilometres with 154 kilometres completed. So we've done more than what we were targeting for in Blaney Shire. So is that because we've gone over Barry Road, Mandurama Road, and the other road again, which we've done 2 years ago, but have had some regrowth?
Yeah, so some of the reason Blaney's is call it larger or longer is there were some roads that we didn't finish off last year because we focused on a highway to get that out of the way. So it's partly that, and then so all of the outstanding roads from section 2 last year have been completed. The highway has been retouched up in those parts where we had to dodge all the roadworks and that, apart from the section of roadworks we're still doing, which we still can't get into at the moment. And then we've finished, we're just about finished all the other U3 roads. What that's done is since this report's come out, I've got more data since we've written this one today, and that figure per kilometre has dropped again for Blaney, because the ones that we're now going over now, which are U3 roads, are some at the start of what was the Hadia stuff, which was sprayed like 2 years ago. So they're faster and cleaner to go over now. So as we progress through that, we're starting to see those positive effects of what we were able to bump off for a couple of years in a row with the other project, is having benefits into this now and helping smooth that process going forward.
So does that bring it back to what, $200 a kilometre?
Well, it's gone from, with this one it was about 380,
Yes.
and getting back into those roads that were done 2 years ago, it's dropped to about 282, 283, so roughly not quite $100. And then we're going to keep moving through those roads, so hopefully we'll see. Yeah, so that theory of being able to get around and keep Adam at a regular rate, we're starting to see the effects of that.
So a further question on that though, and I will make a quick statement before I ask the question. So there was some uncertainty with regard to a potential conflict of interest with regard to the Cadia project. Blaney Shire Council has got some legal advice, which is in next week's business paper, which indicates there is at this stage no conflict of interest with any councillor that may be caught up in a class action area. So it's not a class action at this point in time. So I'm just clarifying that, so I don't need to make any declaration with regard to the.
Cadia action had anything to do with weed spraying?
Cadia is providing money for the Cadia area as part of it. So I just wanted to make that clarity that there is, the Cadia Blaney Council has received this, and this is in the public paper, so it's out there. It was published this morning on the council website. As part of the business paper. So I just wanted to clarify that so that there's no indication that I may have a pecuniary interest, because the legal advice says there is no class action by any members within what they call the red zone at the moment, because the proceedings haven't commenced yet with regard to any class action and opt-in or opt-out. So with that in mind, I just wanted to get an update on the Cadia program, which was $20,000 between Blaney Shire Council contributing 10 and Cadia contributing $10,000 to that project. So have you started on that one yet, or is that after this other project finishes?
Basically, since that was written, we're in that sort of, we're almost at that transition point of finishing finishing the Blaney designated ones, and then we'll swap over into the Cadia funding side of the area.
Thank you, Chair.
So, if I could, Chief Vice Chair, so as of today, Blaney is just about finished basically all its budget.
No, they've still got a budget remaining. They've still got budget remaining.
Okay, so I thought you said that because you finished it, you're moving to Cadia.
No, there's roads within section 3 that are solely Blaney roads, and then there's roads that are in section 3 that are fall within the,
Okay, so maybe I'll leave it that maybe when we do the April meeting, you'll be in a position to advise on that.
Yeah.
Okay, so Lithgow, is still where it is, or is it progressed?
Lithgow,
is it now, is it reached 100% of the budget?
Yeah, so Lithgow is a little different. Lithgow, when they finish this week, I will get their updated costings next week for Lithgow. So that's that. So Lithgow, we've been working away in section 3. Lithgow last year, we got ourselves ahead last year, which let us get the majority of the Castlereagh Highway completed, which got us ahead into this year's program because we'd already knocked that off. So we finished off the Castlereagh and moved into what's Lithgow section 3 now. That has all been completed by, there's a small section on the highway between Lithgow heading Sydney direction, finished off. We were working on that. The conversations with Lithgow was that if we have any leftover funding to once again make a headway into next year, like so go through this 3 and before make a headway, we've got the majority of the highway done. Our ROL ran out, so we had to apply for another ROL for that. There was a hold up at Transport's end on that ROL coming back. So in the meantime, we put an amount aside to finish off the highway while we wait for the ROL, made a start on some of the section 4 roads, and now that our ROL came back earlier this week, we'll finish the highway over the next few days, and so Lithgow will finish all of this year's one, and they're ahead into next year as well. So Lithgow's cruising along quite nicely with that.
Okay, so again, when you report in April.
Could I
And what are you going to, sorry, yes.
just ask a question on Letgo? Just noting in the table, 2024-25 with an input of 149,000, we ended up with 261 kilometres. Now, 25-26 we put 152 and a bit thousand. We're sitting on 154 kilometres. Now, there's a differential around just over 100,000.
Because I haven't received the numbers in from teams yet, so I haven't updated. As I said, at the end of this week, I'll get the numbers next week, and I can go into the sheets and update.
Okay, that's fine. Can I also just acknowledge, when we do put requests through, we're able to get detailed reports back to the council group, because it was raised at council meeting, so I thank whoever generated that, because it makes a very clear report back to the council group. And as I drive that section you've described, I'm watching the work unfold, so yes, there's something along that eastern section of the highway being dealt with, so again, just an acknowledgement that I'm getting good feedback from that.
And Bathurst got only got 69% of its corners complete and 100% of its budget. So is that going to push Bathurst out to a 5-year program? So Bathurst's going to contribute a lot more in the front.
I can't categorically say either way, Mr. Chair.
All right. Any further discussion? I put the motion. All in favour? Carried unanimously. 3.8 capital expenditure adjustment request. Recommendation is that council approve the amendments to the capital expenditure budget as outlined in this report, including revised timing of existing allocations in addition to new capex items. Specifically, 1, mobile phones, approve the bringing forward of the existing 6,000 allocation for financial year 2027 to financial year 2026 and increase the allocation by 3,500 to meet current operational requirements and updated market pricing. 2, the general manager's laptop, approve advancing the replacement of the general manager's laptop from financial year 2027 to financial year 2026 and an estimated cost of 2,500 exclusive of GST. 3, tough book replacements, approve the revised timing and valuation for replacement of tough books by A, bringing forward the scheduled replacement of 5 units from financial year 2028 to 2027, and B, reducing the allocated budget by 2,500 based on updated market pricing. 4, handheld spray devices, approve the inclusion of a new capex allocation of 12,540 in financial year 2026 for the purchase of handheld spray devices. Do I have a motion, please? Member Reynolds, seconder. Member Green. Thank you. Member Reynolds.
Thank you, Chair. There's some items, in particular the General Manager's laptop, where there's been some major issues. It's actually costing the County Council a large amount of money to go to IT. So I suggest that we bring forward as quickly as possible. Hopefully the General Manager next week, if the Council agrees to approve the change in CapEx today, goes and buys a new laptop and gets it operational so that our costs come down a little bit on the IT side, because I think the General Manager indicated to me 6 hours General Manager of IT expenses or some period of time like that.
Yeah, around that.
So
it's substantial.
So it's an urgent matter to get a replacement because IT costs are quite expensive for the County Council.
Similarly with laptops and the phones for the boys, there's lost productivity there because they're fighting with their phones and their computers to actually work
So
well.
exactly the same as Bethany has just indicated, that we need to upgrade and replace as sooner rather than later. Again, when we did the original capital budget, we were working on estimates of time, and by the looks of it, the wear and tear is just they're not quite holding up to the original estimates. And maybe when we look at CapEx moving forward, so the budget for next financial year and financial years after that, because we did a 10-year program, we might have to move forward to say 4 years rather than 5, etc. on some of the items to cover the wear and tear. So we've got to increase the depreciation as well, because we're currently running, I think, for most laptops on 5 years. So we have to increase it up to 25% depreciation when we come to financials, which may increase our depreciation costs a little bit, given these are smaller items. It shouldn't be a huge change in depreciation when the budget is done. Thank you, Chair.
Marie?
I think it's particularly mobile phones, laptops, anything IT that needs to be functional. The equipment changes so much, it can easily fail. That it has to be replaced I think we should just do it.
Just make a couple of comments. Can you check the tough book warranties, please? I understood they had extended warranties. I know I take out extended warranties on all my laptops, and they fail before the end of the warranty period, when they're replaced for it. So if you could just check those, please. I'd like an update, please, as we've done here on this handheld spray devices. Because I just want a general update as we come in as a capital expenditure, because my recollection is, and I can't quite remember what the initial cost of the handhelds, because we paid for them, then we returned them. I can't remember if we got the money back or the money was held in limbo. We're now putting out 12,540. Is that the total cost for these devices? And we're also paying a support cost for them. So if you could just give us an update on one, are they working properly? Two, are they robust enough? Because these were the issues we had for them before. They weren't working properly, they weren't robust enough. Are the contractors able to use them effectively? Are the contractors using them seamlessly? And are they obviously performing all the functionality that they were initially represented as being able to do?
Through the chair, I can give you a bit of a history around the purchasing. So the original spray units were purchased back in October 2024, excluding GST, roughly $21,000. In April 2025, 8 of those items were returned, totaling about $15,000. In November of last year, 2025, an additional 8 items were purchased at $12,540, and hence what's in front of council today. So far as the...
Sorry, just before we go. So 21,000 we pay for how many units?
I believe there was... I may have to take that on notice. But I know we returned, I have the number of 8 were returned.
So we've got 21,000 for however many. We returned 8 at 15,000.
Yep.
And we've purchased 8 back for 12,540. 6 back.
And the other item that I will add is that there is a profit and loss software charge for the software associated with this, which is around the $9,000 amount
Per year.
per.
And that goes to profit and loss, obviously, not to the CapEx. So we're paying $9,000 a year in subscriptions, which we did ask the constituent councils to pay originally, but nobody got any favourable responses with the former thing. That's what they originally did. So, okay. 15,000. So all up, it cost us 18,560. Because we had paid out 21,000, we got 15,000 back, so that's 6,000 we still outlay. And we add that 6,000 to the 12,540. You're up to 18,560. That's what those cost. Capital cost. Is that right?
$18,376.
Okay, 376. And we're paying 9,000 a year subscriptions. Okay, so Right, so all up, it's costing us, capex is 18,560 split across a couple of years, and 9,000. Okay, so now let's look at the other things, the efficacy, the robustness, able to be used by contractors, are they performing all the functionality that the original represented?
So I'll ask Chris for his view on that with the contractors. I know from my perspective, I've seen some of the data, and I want to be in a position where I can share that data with the councillors. But some of the detailed data around GPS locations, the type of weed, and the spray rates are very, very impressive. And I'll throw to Chris if he's got any other further comment on the problems being eliminated.
I suppose the data we are getting is, as I said, very useful, very helpful data. It shows a lot there. We're still having some issues with the reliability of that data in terms of collecting it all the time.
So can you give us some specific examples of understanding?
Okay. It's more to, we have had a few blowouts, but that's like seals and things like that, which we've been fixing on the run. It's more to do with the connection of the device in terms of signal. So they operate off GPS signal, but then they're uploading and downloading via internet signal. So if the contractor is in, or the teams are in an area where they've got good signal, both satellite and internet, it's sweet, off it goes blast. If we're in an area where it doesn't have good internet signal, especially for uploading, so once they've completed a day and then they go to upload that data, they need to get back into an area that's got good signal for it to upload that data. That said, if it runs today and is in a poor service area, it's supposed to hold that data in it until it gets back in, and that can be a day or so until it gets back into a good service area, and then it uploads. The unit will only upload when it's on charge. So at the end of the day, they've got a park, plug on charge to recharge the unit. While it's recharging the unit, it'll upload that data back up the system. The dramas we're having is when the teams are located or set up a base in a high service area because they're trying to set up a base close to where they're working to save on travel and all that. That then causes a drama that when they do go to upload, they've got to spend time in a stable area to get all that to load it up.
But can't they upload it on the satellite?
No, so it uploads only uploads and downloads via internet signal.
So overall, bearing in mind it's 9,000 a year and an 18,000 capital cost, is it proving worthwhile?
I don't know that I can answer that question. I know I can say that the data we're getting from the ones that are working well is very useful data that we're getting out of them. We're getting flow rates, we're getting rotations, we're getting what's sprayed, when it's sprayed.
So you know if we've gone over a road twice, once for Blackberry and once for Straight
We can see all that. We can see where it was sprayed, what was
But you
sprayed.
won't see if they're using the knapsack for the odd bit of fussy, not only the
No,
using the main
only
spray.
if you can spray. But, yeah, I don't think we want to afford to put them onto knapsacks on that. That data is really good, the maps that it draws, the data that it pulls out, that's really helpful. Like going forwards in terms of things like, okay, we spray that road this year, we come back in 2 or 3 years and spray the same road. Are we spraying the same areas of that road? Are we spraying different areas on the road? Are we spraying the same plants, different plants? We can flow rates to say, okay, we used 1.2 litres here last time, this time we're going to use 0.8 litres, like to compare all of that. It's also very helpful for things like complaints or things like that. If someone rings up and complains and say, hey, your guys just went through this area, we can bring it up and say, listen over there, here's where they were, here's where they weren't. You know what I mean? Like all of that becomes very simple. In terms of the other side of it, it collects all your weather data, all your chemical data, all that sort of stuff, so you're not having to do all your spray sheet logs and all that stuff. It automatically does it all for you, so that saves that side of the equation. So there's a lot of benefits to it in terms of if it's working properly, it's a really good system. In terms of
What about the contractors? How are they going? Is it making the handpieces heavier and all that sort of thing?
We've adapted it and changed it, so originally we had them mounted onto the end of the guns.
Yes.
That lasted a couple of months and we scrapped that idea pretty quick. It doesn't seem like much, but it's not, the unit's smaller than the phone, it's a little box, doesn't weigh overly much, but it changes the angle of the way everything operates.
So we're mounting it now.
So what we've done now is we've put about a metre or so of flexi hose in the middle. So you've got the gun, a metre or so of flexi hose, and then the unit in the left hand, which lets you use the gun in the right hand as per normal. The other advantage of it is that you can work the controls on the device with your left hand at the same time as spraying with your right hand. You don't have to like pull spraying and change functions, you can do it on the run. That has improved it a lot in terms of operation and just wear and tear.
Robustness? Is that word breaking a lot?
There are lots of things in that word.
You said the seals are going to.
We've had a couple of seals pop, but they are a lot better than what they were. The ones that we sent back got replacement housing on them and they were sent back to us. And all the new ones that we received, are basically completely new units with the new housings and all of that on.
Right. So how many have we got in the field at the moment?
Mine sends 6 to the spray group.
So, but I'm having some confusion because we paid out 21,000 to begin with. Was that for 8 units? Because we returned 8 units. So we only got 15,000.
No, originally we had.
So did we keep any units? Or we returned them all?
No, we kept a couple of units here.
So why haven't they gone back to be replaced with more robust units?
No, they didn't go back. They got sent back, reconfigured the new housings and all that and sent back to us.
Okay, because I thought the credit we got was only for 8 back.
No, we didn't send a lot back in terms of,
We didn't.
we sent so many back, kept, I can't remember exactly how many we kept, I think we kept so many, but those ones we kept, we sent them back just to get the housings and the seals and that replacement one.
Right.
And sent it back to us.
And then we got 6 more.
I can take that on notice and provide councillors with a full update on numbers of funding.
Okay, so we think they're going to be worthwhile. I mean, you've got reservations also.
Oh, Chair, can I actually ask something?
Yes.
And I did try and get your attention about 10 minutes ago. Could we ask for a report to come back to the April meeting, as in a comprehensive report, but also with regard to data, we are proposing an information and strategy session before the meeting, that we actually maybe even extend that information and strategy session for a little bit longer and actually have some visual information about the meters, and also that report actually look at the pros and the cons, and rather than putting a staff member on the spot of actually making a call judgment, but to actually bring back a balanced paper on what worked well, what didn't work well, whether we should continue with it or not. So I think rather, so I'd like to have that added to the recommendation, that we bring back a report, both to the council, to the April meeting, but also to the information and strategy session on some of the data that is of value, so that we don't put a staff member on the spot here at the moment to make a judgment call when probably the staff member doesn't have the full knowledge of whether it's achieved what we hoped and whether it's 80% achieved or whatever. So if I have a seconder, or if the mover and seconder would be happy to make that amendment to the no, it's not directly in relation to it, but to add an extra dot point there.
So 5 would be bring back a report on the handheld spraying devices benefits
To the April meeting.
Spraying benefits, strengths, weakness, strengths, a SWOT analysis. Is that what you want?
Well, yeah.
SWOT analysis
Usage and outcomes.
on the handheld spray devices to the April 2026 meeting, including samples of data provided. Is that what you want?
Well, I wanted that at a information and strategy session beforehand, so that the councillors can have a look at the type of data that's been provided on the roadsides, etc., so that we can actually get an idea, and then we can.
So you're talking about that being produced at the workshop that we've
It's no longer a workshop information and strategy session. Before the council meeting on that day, if we agree to having an information and strategy session, the policies plus this, before that particular council meeting.
Well, then I think we should leave that out, and when we come to determine if it's going to be an information and strategy session, we put that as one of the.
Okay. Thank you.
So we leave spraying, a SWOT analysis on the handheld spray devices. So who was the mover and seconder?
I'm going to be the second. Councillor Reynolds.
Councillor,
So you don't move it? Okay.
Oh, just
Originally,
Yes, I'm
Yes,
moving.
you-
Okay, so I'm moving an amendment.
This seconded
you moved it.
Yeah, so I'm amending my, it's a moving, so I'm
You're allowed to amend it.
yes, that's right, so I'm suggesting, so who's second?
Change, and you're agreeing with the seconder?
Katie was the original seconder.
Okay, you're right. Yes.
There's always discussion about these handheld spray devices. You know, physically have an inspection of it. I've never seen it. I just want to see what we've got and all of the mechanical. I just want to see, because it seems to be able to blow up and backwards and forwards and warranties, and are we satisfied? No, we're not. I just like to have a look at one, see what we're talking about.
Maybe we all should do it at the information session, if not before.
I'm a bit of a seeing as to
We could do a demo at Councillor Gallagher's place.
I think that's actually probably, I don't think, you don't think that. So I think it'd be quite.
Yeah.
Do it at the information.
It's spray water.
And just like a comment, Kev. Just noted that as you were talking, I was noting the details you're saying as far as records. They're extremely valuable, particularly if you end up in disputes or you have investigations through the EPA when you're operating in public lands. So if there's consistency that comes out of using these, it may eliminate some risk of incomplete records and things like that. So I'd like you to report just a reference into that if you could as well.
Any other discussion on this matter? Right, I put the motion, including at point 5, bring back a report at the April 2026
Just
meeting.
confirming, Mr Chair, we're still allowing the expense? Yeah.
That's 1 to 4.
Yes.
Yes, because it's 4.
But then requiring a report about the effectiveness after we've approved the spend?
Well, we don't have any option because I think we're being told the reports, we need to do a report of SWOT
I've already spent the money.
To be, yeah. To be fair, just from what Chris has told me, I'm fully in support of technology, believe it has value for money. So I'd like to vote against the amendment, but I'm just wondering the benefit of the extended report. But yeah, that's my go. You put it and I'll vote.
Sorry, can you repeat that? on the basis of what the Chief Biosecurity Officer is saying, you,
I still think there's value for money in the technology. that we've
I don't think anyone's doubting that, that's why
Oh, I
we're
thought we were
agreeing.
doubting it, so getting more information.
It's understanding what,
So,
what it is.
Chair, can I just quickly clarify? What I'm doing with this report
Yeah.
is to say, okay, do we want to continue with the licensing fee of $9,000 next financial year, as the county council moving forward? Do we see, so we need some data to go, yes, it's actually achieving 80% of what we're hoping to achieve, can we get up to 100%? But do we then, in the budget, allocate another $9,000 for a licensing fee for 26-27 in the financial year? So, but we've already spent the money on that, so if we voted against, as in actually spending the money, then we actually put the general manager in a very difficult situation because
So,
it's spent.
absolutely, Member Fry, what we're doing is getting a report that can then justify us going forward if the report comes out, basically advantageous.
And he's just
saying we should be
clarified.
spending $9,000
Clarify,
next
you're
year.
justifying a future expense,
That's
not the
right.
one we've already spent.
That's right.
Thanks for the clarification, guys.
Right. Bethany, you got that 0.5. Thank you. All in favour? Carried unanimously. Are you against, Member Fry?
I was for that, after it was explained properly.
Item 4, Biosecurity Operations Manager Reports. 4.1, Property Inspections. The recommendation the Council notes the report from the Biosecurity Operations Manager. Can I have a motion, please? Member Fry. Member Graham, thank you. Member Fry? Member Graham? I'll just ask the General Manager or the General Manager of Biosecurity. So are we, I note the number of inspections is increasing, the lag, the number, there's still a bit of a lag in inspections, but did you notice that through the November to the January period, we didn't have the normal lag that we would have had if we had the aerial program?
So if you look at.
I've seen the figures, yes. If you like to comment on that.
Yeah, so just on that, so if you look at January last year, you were sitting at 18, January this year at 114, so that's a huge step up. Now I've run this morning, this is only up until this morning for February, so obviously we're still going to finish February off. But February last year we were 49, February this year we're sitting at 107. So
One of the inspections, just a quick question, one of the inspections in December and January for Blaney and Oberon sort of go right down, especially January 26. There's only 9 in Oberon and 11 in Blaney.
Is that because we're not out there doing the spraying as well? We don't do that on the same day?
no, so part of what that is the Christmas close down period. So we're shut for the minimum 2 weeks over Christmas, plus a number of the staff take an extra week or so there as well. So in January, if you look more, say, over on Blaney, so in Oberon, one of the staff members that covers part of Oberon was off for 3 weeks out of 4. The other staff member was off 2 weeks out of 4, but then was also concentrating doing re-inspections in the lift go that they had, so that those re-inspections didn't become 9 days. So it's a bit of a juggle. But then if we look at, so once again, I'll run similar numbers for February up until today, which puts Bath is sitting at about 28, Lithgow is sitting at about 33, Blaney at about 22, and Oberon to date in February is on about 24. So now that we've got out of that Christmas period. Part of the other thing that's pushing the numbers up in Lithgow at the moment is, which has been over December, January and to date so far in February, is new incursions of sticky nightshade that we're getting predominantly along road corridors and things like that.
In Lithgow.
In Lithgow. So it's sticky nightshade, as we all appreciate, is kind of a bit of a super weed sort of thing. So we have our core area down in the Blaney area, which is sort of that Kendawara sort of section. Down in that area, it's classed as containment, so what we're trying to do is hold it at bay there and not let it spread. The other infestations we're getting around Northern Bathurst and Lithgow and that thing, touch wood, we don't have it in Oberon at the moment at all, isn't coming from our core area. Our core area, we're seeing those is sort of between us and Cowra in those areas.
Of what sticky nightshade?
Sticky nightshade. The other infestations we're seeing is coming up through sort of Western Sydney, through Blue Mountains and into Lusk, but it's predominantly Western Sydney and then hitchhiking a ride over the mountains and coming to Lusk. Outside the core area, it's classed as a eradication species, so we need to jump on it straight away. So when we have ones pop up, either the guys find as they're driving to sites to do other inspections, or we get phone calls coming and say, hey, we just spotted some here. Because of the level of the weed and the seriousness of it, we need to attend to that straight away. So that's bumping the Lithgow numbers up somewhat at the moment, having to deal with them. So to give you a rough idea, December, January, we had about 25 sites that we had to go and treat in that period. Now they could be one plant or they could be a dozen plants in one area, but that's sort of, we're just sort of trying to plot sites. In February to date so far, we've had 30 additional sites that we have to go and deal with. So that's, it takes up a bit of time in terms of having to deal with that, but if we don't, you don't want to end up in a situation where it gets a hold in you, because it's a extremely hard plant to get rid of. It costs an extreme lot of money to try and deal with. So.
Right. Okay, any other discussion? Member Reynolds?
I'm just going to highlight, I was at Marsden Park, so the IKEA, etc., and in the industrial area of Marsden Park, the amount of sticky nightshade in the road centres, as in the, you know, where the
So are you posing a biosecurity risk to this because you brought some back in your car? Is that what you're saying?
I'm just saying how widespread it is, Chair, in an industrial area of Sydney, and it's just grown wild. As in, there's no control, there's no, and along the Hawkesbury River, just on the side of the Hawkesbury River, the amount of it that's just growing in paddocks and on roadsides, that there's no control. So it's going to continue to come over the mountains through four-wheel drives that pull off on the side of the road and everything else, and the risk that yours truly pulls off on the side of the road or anyone else, and then comes back out to our part of the world and shakes off in our part of the world, going particularly over a river ford or rough roads. So, and that is part of the problem with sticky nightshade. In some parts of the state, it's not seen as a priority weed, and it's just exploded and growing out of control. So, I just wanted to highlight that as an issue that I particularly noted, and I'm going, well, sticky tomato in the middle of the roads as I was driving around. So, it is quite prevalent in other parts of the state.
I just support that statement, Councillor Reynolds. Yeah, and it's south of Penrith as well. It's up and down the that west city.
So are you suggesting we have border security in Blue Mountains?
I think that'd be perfect. And border control?
Well, is that to keep Councillor Reynolds out from
Him and his Swiss hot dogs or meatballs or whatever. He doesn't buy furniture.
Members, we are being recorded.
The other question that I do have, Chair, is just a clarification. So in January 2026, we had 33 properties that were 90 days and over in inspection, and we've wound that back. Is that correct? Am I reading on the table? Or
Sorry, consider it.
that there's 33 properties that are 90 days overdue. Is that what this current report on page 47 means? I'm a little confused about the current report. So the table has got 25 and then 26, September, October, November, December, January. I'm confused on what that table's actually trying to...
Now, you're looking at page 45?
Yeah, 44 and 45. So it says overdue inspections on 44, and it comes down to two tables, and it says in January there's 33 and then lists the 4 constituent councils. So am I correct in understanding that table?
No, sorry.
So through the chair, the outstanding ones in the 31st of January one, the 5 in October, what this report highlights is what are the ones coming up in the pipeline need to be addressed. So the overdue, and we'll take a note to make this a bit clearer, that the overdue ones here are currently the 5 noted in October.
Sorry, if I can anticipate that further. So the 5 are due, 5 are effectively 90 days, and then as Michael said, the rest are they're coming up to be due, but they're not due yet. Sorry, some might be due yet, but they're not in the 90-day ones. Of those 5, as of today, 3 of them have been dealt with, so we've only got 2 left outstanding to deal with.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Any further discussion? If not, I put the motion as per the recommendation. All in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Go to 5.1, general business. 5.1 is member fees, expenses and facilities policy. The recommendation is council board member fees, expenses and facilities policy. Motion please. Member Ring, second. Member Reynolds, thank you. Member Ring.
No.
Right, any other discussion? If not, I put the motion as per the recommendation. All in favour? Yep. We move to item 5.1. Oh, no, we don't. Sorry. 6, 7.
Back one.
5.2 is procurement policy. Recommendation is that the council endorses the enclosed draft procurement policy. For the motion, please. Reynolds and Fry, thank you. We note that it's been updated to include the amendment made by Member Reynolds. Any other discussion? Not, I put the motion as per the recommendation. All in favour? Carried unanimously. 5.3, remotely piloted aircraft drone policy. Recommendation to the council board to draft remotely piloted aircraft drone policy. Motion please, Member Ring. Member Gulliver, thank you. Member Ring.
My understanding of the green is purely about inspection. It's not about spraying. That would be an entirely different set of documents. So we're not on that with the document.
Member Gulliver. Member Reynolds.
Just a question on, should we be potentially looking at upskilling 1 or 2 of our staff members so that we can do the other side of the hill, so that we get the CASA? I'm not quite sure about the cost versus the benefit, but could we potentially have a look at whether we should be maybe upskilling 1 or 2, maybe all the staff, so that we can cover the other side, but we don't have to have a line of sight with the drones, so which would, whether it's an extension of this policy if we did go down that pathway, but more I'm just asking of an investigation at this stage to see whether there is a need or not. So whether we put that in as another dot point, that to undertake an investigation on whether we need, there is a need to get 1 or 2 of our staff members qualified for a CASA.
All right, we've always not, before we make any change, I'll ask the general manager to comment on that.
I don't have an opinion on it at this point. I know that any upskilling staff would have a budgetary impact, and we need to bear that in mind when we come to look at the budget for next year. But more than welcome to take it under consideration.
So pretty well, Chair, a benefit cost analysis, I suppose, to see whether there is a...
Well, I was going to sort of investigate the opportunity to upskill staff so that drones can be used outside of pure line of sight. Is that what you want to?
Yep.
And come back with a report including costing.
So that procedure question, is that an additional point, or is it a matter of rising? Because you're asking for a report, this is a policy document, and we're asking just to purely vote on the policy.
Yep.
So to me, what's being asked is a matter of rising, under the UK reading practice. So it'd be a separate,
I'm happy to put it, hold it off and put it as a matter of.
No, that comes, it just follows straight on. So it's just a separate recommendation from us, it's not part of.
Well, that's what I was putting it as a point 2.
Yeah, it's not a point two, though.
It's
It's a separate recommendation altogether.
Right.
an additional recommendation, I think is the. that's-
Yeah, it's not associated with the non-first
So we vote on this one first, then we put it up as a matter of rising.
Yeah.
But, hold on.
Right, okay. Councillor Fry, Member Fry.
Yeah, it's not a bad idea, but the cost benefit analysis would just be done versus technology upgrade for the new drones. They have more modern drones have, for not much more money, have much further optical zooms. It's important to get optical, not digital zoom. Optical zoom can allow you to, appear a lot further within still line of sight, pointing towards different parts of the property, so as long as the terrain is okay. So that should be a consideration in that cost benefits analysis. Just because I know that some of those courses, they cost $69,000 sometimes, depending on where they're held, plus travel, etc. So for the similar price, we can upgrade drone hardware to do a better job at identifying the stronger zoom technologies in those cameras, just from experience.
All right, well, if we go to a matter of rising, we get a second recommendation, and I
Just balance it with hardware,
No,
training
I'm happy
versus
to-
hardware, yeah, or a combination of both. Yeah.
Okay. Any other discussion on, yes?
Just follow on from the two councillors. I'm pretty sure, and I'll be corrected, I thought BBI invested some funding into drone operation training. I'll just put that as a point to investigate. If they want to build capacity in surveillance, it would be of interest to them maybe to sponsor a regional one. But I concur with what you're saying as far as partly hardware and partly, training.
All right, I put the motion as per the recommendation, all in favour? Carried unanimously.
So now I'll bring up a matter arising.
So matter arising, thank you.
So
We'll call it 5.3A.
Which is to examine the viability and to include Member Fry's sort of comments in there as well. So to look
Yeah,
at
to
the training
investigate
and also
upskilling and
Upgrade.
possibilities of upskilling and upgrading hardware for the purposes of making the drones more usable in rugged terrain. Right.
And whether there's any appetite for sponsorship through DPI, whether they're willing to cover their costs.
Second point, also investigate whether there's possible funding through DPI.
So I'm happy to move that.
A and B, right? You're happy with that?
I'll second it.
Okay. Any other discussion? Did you get that, Bethany?
Yes.
You got that, okay. All right, all in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you. We go to 5.4, which is risk management policy. A recommendation, council endorse the draft risk management policy. Can I have a motion, please? Member Fry, seconder. Member Reynolds. Member Fry. Member Reynolds. Yes?
No,
You don't want to talk about it? Okay. Okay. Are we happy that the risk policy reflects our appetite for risk, I suppose, is the question. And my only question was in relation to the area of high. If you put the monitoring in place, is that meant to reduce it to a medium? Or what happened if even with the additional monitoring it remains a high risk? It says we should use ahead. So that's all back to risk appetite.
Chair,
Yes.
I'm going to, I know I seconded it. I've just had a second thought though, whether we should potentially, given this is risk appetite and risk, we actually send it off to Eric to actually have a look at before we endorse the policy, so defer a decision today, send it off to Eric to get their input, because they're supposed to look at risk or risk improvement.
Absolutely agree with you, but even before we get to that aspect, do we, as members and as of the Macquarie, need to look at this risk policy and says, does it now properly reflect our risk appetite? Are we being too gung-ho or are we being too conservative? And in the nature of our business, we have to risk, some degree of risk is inherent in the nature of our business.
So I will then make a further suggestion that we look at, if we're going to hold an information and strategy session, that we also include this.
Develop a
Yeah,
risk
I
appetite.
think because this is we as a council need to sit down and just see that this actually, because we haven't done that, we've had a redraft of the policy.
We need a risk
But as
appetite statement.
We need to, but it has an appetite statement in there.
No.
We have to review it to see if it's still appropriate. I suggested we kept 2 paragraphs in because I think that sort of more reflective on appetite than maybe the one that said appetite. But, and I know the general manager's still reviewing things like aerial program, etc. So we have to be careful that this risk policy allows for whatever may occur in the immediate future. You know, it could.
Risk policies are always about managing risk and mitigating.
That's
You
right.
never get rid of risk completely.
That's right.
So, yeah, look, I mean, we can defer it. I don't see any reason to just throwing it over to Eric, get their feedback, get it back to a workshop, just to get their input, see what they think.
Well, it's probably, we've got an hour meeting next week, isn't it?
Yeah,
It's probably, is it too late for it to go out to
The
them?
agenda's already going out.
just send them a late report, we pay them, it's all good.
I mean, I think Eric probably should review the final one, and probably after we've looked at it.
Before we bring it up to council. So maybe that's a better pathway, we bring it up to an information and strategy session before the April meeting, we then
All right.
send it off to
So
Eric.
I'll move that we defer the draft risk. We note that the general manager has updated the report, because I think we need to update that on the basis of performance review, that you have done the job.
It's going to be on the agenda.
But the council, but the members believe that that this is a policy that's crucial for the council, for it that risk management policy be reviewed at an information and what do you call it?
Strategy session.
Strategy session prior to being formally endorsed.
No, well, we're not going to, bring it up in an information strategy session, then we put a pathway forward, goes to Eric, and then.
Well, it's still prior to being endorsed, because it goes to information, then it goes to Eric and comes back to council for endorsement.
It's got to be a significant gap between the information session and the council meeting.
All right, it goes to an information and strategy session, and we'll leave it at that.
We'll stop.
Full stop.
Can we just go to the
Those-
workshop?
Second it? Thank you, Member Fry. Do we all agree with that? But we know that it's been updated by the general manager, because we need to have a tick that he's done that. That's a policy check, right? But it's us who defer it because of it. Okay? All right, all in favour? You got that wording, Bethany?
Yes.
Thank you. Cool. Five point five, policy library update. Recommendation of council notes report of the update of CTWA's policies. A motion, please.
Yeah, I'm good.
Member Ring, seconder. Member Mahoney, thank you. Any discussion?
No.
Put the mic, yes.
I'm just going to highlight that because we've deferred a couple of things, that the timeframe will actually grow out for a couple of the items, so that should be just noted that the council's agreed to defer, so
Well, we deferred the risk one, what else have we deferred?
What's the one earlier?
Through the chair, I'll take the record here to reflect what's around in this meeting.
And maybe if you put, the fourth column note and then you just make it look like, no, yeah, we deferred the response, of what has been updated, right. Okay, noting that, I put the motion as for the recommendation on favour, carried unanimously, thank you. We go to 5A1, which is papers that have been handed to you and were circulated this morning by me. 5A1 is the General Manager contract extension. The notice of motion is the Upper Macquarie County Council Trading and Central Tablelands Weeds Authority reappoint Michael Jones as General Manager for a further period of 3 years commencing 1st July 2026 and should simply deal on my computer playing up, apologise, and ending 30th June 2029, subject to the satisfactory results of performance review in accordance with item 5A.2. I'll move the motion. Do I have a second? And Maureen, thank you. Discussion? No discussion.
Should we just get the conflict of interest?
What?
What's that?
What conflict?
Oh, there's no conflict in the room? Okay.
Do you want conflict? You organise it.
No, I meant more staff member who it's about. Or, no.
Ah, he's not voting.
Yeah, I know, but that's not the point.
We're not, well,
Anyway,
Technically, the general manager should probably have declared and left the room for
Yeah.
this particular item.
That's
I think
right.
the council.
Could have been confidential, but it's probably not.
Through the chair, I just saw it as a procedural matter.
Procedural matter, I think
I
so.
think that's what, well, that's what I was just trying to say, that's what councillor Fry was indicating.
Happy to leave the room if councillors would like me to.
More
If you wish to discuss the matter.
more fun of you.
Councillors, would you like the general manager to leave?
It's a self-declaration, Mr. Chair, so it's not up to us. But
All right. That's right. I put the motion, all in favour? Carried unanimously, thank you. We go to 5A, item 5A.2, General Manager's Performance Review Panel.
Can I move with an addition?
Normally it's up to the person who put the motion to read it, then you can put an amendment.
So you want me to amend it, not just move it?
Well, let me read it, and then you can put a replacement motion if you want it, but that's what the code's basically saying at the moment. You've got to read it first, well, especially with the notice of motion. Council, its meeting 20th February 2026, appoints members nominated at that meeting to the Performance Review Panel to review the General Manager's performance for the period 1st July 2025 to 31st December 2025, and to nominate a date or a selection of dates for the members to the panel, subsequently confirm their availability for the Performance Review Panel meeting with the General Manager. I'll move it, seconder. In the Fry. Do you have an amendment?
So I have an amendment, and both of you may be in agreement.
Yes.
So leave dot point 1 as is, create a new dot point 2.
Do we need to move, my question is, do we need to leave one, or do we replace one with what you're proposing? Because we now appoint the members. So could I suggest we go into committee of the whole, please? Now someone moves to the committee of the whole. Ring, all in favour? Now I suggest we discuss who goes on the committee. Have you got some nominations?
So my suggestion was,
Yes.
as in that council appoint the chair, Councillor Andrew McKibben, as the Oberon representative, the deputy chair, Councillor Ben Fry, as the Bathurst representative, Councillor X at this point in time until we have nominations from Lithgow, and Councillor X from Blaney to the performance review panel.
Can I just add to that under the guidelines, general manager's got the right to appoint a councillor to represent himself.
That's right.
But he can
Right.
forego that.
He can, but I wouldn't.
But
they're only guidelines.
That's up to him to appoint if it doesn't get decided by us.
No, I'm just flagging, that's all.
So, do we have a nomination for Lithgow and Blaney?
I'll put my hand up for Lithgow.
Right? Right, so we have 4. Do we want to leave the dates, or do we want to set them now for a meeting?
I suggest early next week so we can look at our calendars and working with the general manager when he's available to do the performance agreement too, that's the.
Well, I'm tied up most of next week, it's no problem, but anyway.
Let's come back over email.
Yeah, right, let's organise by it. So we'll say that, for 2, we'll say that, can I say the Biosecurity Administration Officer will circulate some potential dates?
Perfect.
So clarification, Chair, with dot point 1, are you indicating that read something like appoint members?
I'm happy to put your wording in there now, but that's what I was going to go in, as I said, I was going to go into this section, then we'd appoint them, then we'd come back and we'd amend the thing.
Okay.
So I'm happy to use your wording.
Okay, wait to come back.
So when we come back in, that's what will happen. Right. So any other discussion? We've got Chairman, Deputy Chairman, Councillor Mahoney and Reynolds, and that's it. And we've got,
So a question then, does the general manager want to appoint someone else as well?
well, that's up to him. That's up to him. We don't decide on that. I'll make a point, well, I'll say the general manager has a right to appoint a council member.
He just taps him on the shoulder for the day.
Yeah. But if he does, he may not want to make that decision here. He might want to consult with the person he wants to appoint. So, we just note that the general manager has the right to, and I'll note that when we come back.
Okay.
All right. Are we happy to move back into out of the committee of the whole? Can I have some members out of member Graham, member Fry? Thank you. So, the resolution will now point 1 will be Council appoints the chair, Councillor Andrew McKibben is the overall representative, the deputy chair, Councillor Ben Fry is the Bathurst representative, Councillor Eric Mahoney from Lithgow, and Councillor Bruce Reynolds from Blaney to the performance review panel. And 2, the Biosecurity Administration Officer will circulate some potential dates for members of the panel to meet for the performance review panel, a meeting with the General Manager. And it's noted that this is not part of the notice of motion, but should be noted that the General Manager has the right to appoint a council representative also to the performance review panel.
Chair, can I add extra in dot point 1?
Yeah.
After performance review panel, as you just stated, to review the general manager's performance for the period 1 July 2025 to the 31st of December 2025.
Oh, that's what I had in the other one. Yes,
Yes.
right.
So that needs to be added in.
Yeah. Sorry, a hybrid of what you wrote now, but yeah. Are you right with that, Bethany?
Yes.
Fine.
Mhm.
So, any other discussion? Put the motion, all in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Could I have someone, just going on. So item 6 is confidential reports. Council notes that in accordance with section 9A2 of the Local Government Act 1993 and section 10A, the general manager of the opinion of business, the following business is designated confidential, and as the kind referred to in section 10A2 of the Act, it should be dealt with as part of the meeting, close the meter in time. Business is 6.1 prosecution update, 6.2 weed risk ratings by property, 6.3 penalty infringement notices. I therefore ask the councillor, someone move and second us into confidential. Member Dorset, Member Goller. Thank you. All in favour? Bethany, could you cease the recording? Anyone in the gallery, please?
There's just a delay, so it should be going now.
We right?
Not yet. Video, live stream.
It's about 20 seconds.
During the confidential section of the meeting, the following resolutions were passed. In relation to 6.1, prosecution updates, council notes report was moved by member Ring and seconded by member Gulliver. 6.2, we risk rating by property. The motion passed was that council notes the report on the weed risk ratings by property from December 2025 to January 2026, moved by member Reynolds and seconded by member Fry. .3, penalty infringement notices. The motion passed with the council note the report on penalty infringement notices, moved by member Fry and seconded by member Reid. I note that the next council meeting will be on the 17th of April 2026 in these council chambers at 2 p.m. I declare.
And before you declare, Chair, can we, because we mentioned earlier,
I also
about
note
information and strategy
yes.
session.
Also note that we should have an information and strategy session in March or in preceding that meeting. Preceding that meeting, which I would note, which I would suggest at 12 o'clock, 12 p.m.
Either 11 or 12, depending how many items we want to.
We
leave it up to the general manager to determine how many items and therefore how much time it will take.
We
One of
do,
them
we
will
do
be
have
this
to be
policy.
aware of the Evans Arts Council who use this meeting room on a Friday up until midday.
So we'll say with 12 o'clock. 12 o'clock, we'll have an information strategy session which will look at a number of items, being one will be the risk policy,